Welcome to Mucho TV, where we learn from one another and grow. My name is Janvier Nahimana, Canada for Africa Media Advisor. Today, my co-host is Germaine Basita, Canada for Africa Board Co-Chair. Our special guest is Rob Oliphant, Member of Parliament, Toronto, Janvier West. Welcome all to Mucho TV.
As you just mentioned, my name is Germaine Basita. I'm one of the founders of the Canada for Africa group. For those who don't know, the goal of our network is to advocate for more connections between Canada and Africa and Canadians with Africans Africa as a continent. We come from a different community organization in Canada, across Canada. And today we have few members who are going to introduce themselves. But before they do, I have the honor and privilege to have the Reverend Dr. Rob Oliphant among us as our special guest. For those who don't know him, Reverend Dr. Robert Oliphant is a member of Parliament. Rob was elected to the House of Commons on October 19, 2015, and re-elected again on October 21st, 2019. He represents the federal riding of Don Valley West. Rob previously served in that position from 2008 until 2011, when he served as official position critic for Veterans Affairs and for multiculturalism. In December 2019, Rob was appointed as the Parliamentary Secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs by Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. Currently, he works closely with the Honorable François-Philippe Champagne, Minister of Foreign Affairs, to ensure constructive Canadian leadership in the world and promote Canada's interests and values globally. Rob previously served in this role, working with the former Minister of Foreign Affairs, the Honorable Chrystia Freeland. Rob Oliphant is also the Vice Chair of the Canada-Africa Parliamentary Association and the Canada-Pakistan Friendship Group. He served on various other committees in the House of Commons, notably as co-chair of the House of Commons and Senate Special Joint Committee on Physician-Assisted Dying, co-chair of the Standing Committee on Public Safety and National Security from 2015 to 2017, and chair of the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration from 2017 to 2019. He has legislative accomplishments, which include an act which outlaws discrimination against genetic characteristics, as well as an act he co-sponsored, which creates a national dementia strategy. Rob received his Bachelor of Commerce from the University of Toronto and worked in industry as a systems accountant. An ordained minister in the United Church of Canada, he has a Master's of Divinity from the Vancouver School of Theology and the University of British Columbia, and served congregations in Newfoundland, Quebec, Yukon, and Toronto. He earned a doctorate from the Chicago Theological Seminary at the University of Chicago in 2008. From 2011 until 2015, Rob was president and CEO of the Asthma Society of Canada. Please join me to welcome Rob Oliphant in this studio. And Janvier, I know that you are burning to get to know more about Rob, so I'll give you back the mic to ask the first question before I introduce other members who are here to meet our special guest.
Yes, I think that's to begin. For those who don't know you, who is Rob Oliphant?
When I listened to that introduction, I think of two things. I think one, I must be very old, and that is somewhat depressing. But I also note that when it comes to politics, we have a nice way of saying, I won an election, I lost an election, I won an election, I won. So I've had 3 wins and 1 loss, and winning is a lot more fun. In my career has been a little unusual in that I did a business degree and I became an accountant. I wasn't a very good accountant. but I was an accountant. I didn't love it. I went back to school and I studied theology, and I became a minister. And for almost 25 years, served congregations across Canada, and ended up in Toronto for the last 9 years at a church in North Toronto. During that time, I found I was telling in my sermons what politicians should be doing. I was telling governments a lot of things, that they should do this or should do that, or they should try this, or they should care more about that. I was certainly on the left of the spectrum. I was standing up for social justice and human rights and economic justice and women's rights and LGBTQ rights. And I thought, when 2008 came along, I thought, I've been telling government what they should do for a long time. I should try to get in there and do that. So I ran, and I won as a Liberal candidate in 2008, and we were in opposition. And there are certain things you can do in opposition, certain things you can't. I lost. I went and I decided not to go back to the church, because I really thought that I wanted to go back to politics. And going to the church meant I probably wouldn't get back to politics, because you have to kind of commit for a longer period of time, and you get to know people and you love them and you want to stay. So I ran a health charity for people with asthma instead. Then I got back into Parliament in 2015, and we were in government, and I chaired a couple of committees. The other thing in my resume, it says I'm the vice chair of the Canada-Africa Parliamentary Association. I am. But for almost 5 years, I was the co-chair, and I had to step down as the co-chair when I became parliamentary secretary for foreign affairs. So I took on a job as vice chair, but I need to tell you that those 5 years working on Canada, Africa, and traveling out through Africa, I've been to about 20 countries in Africa. I've led delegations and look at the parliamentary relationships between African countries and Canadian countries. So that's really my first love. And so as the parliamentary secretary to the Minister of Foreign Affairs, I have to look at the whole world. So we look at China, Europe, India. That's just this week I've been dealing with those issues. South America, Venezuela, the elections there, COVID-19 response, all of these kinds of things. But sitting on my shoulder are the people from Africa that I've met over the last 6 years, people that I've grown to enjoy and love and respect and learn from, and I carry that. We use Africa as though it means one thing, and it really means, well, I was going to say 54 things for the number of countries, but even more than that, because even within every country of Africa, every state of Africa, there are many peoples, many languages, differences of opinions, colonial history, post-colonial history, economic disparities. The Sahel is completely different from sub-Saharan Africa. You get into the East Coast, the West Coast, the island states. Everywhere you go, it's a little bit different. But there's a common thread, and that is still in our post-colonial era, the need to continue to build, to continue to support, to continue to help Africa be for Africa, but other countries to help it be that way. Not that we're going to tell, not that we're going to deliver all programming, but we have to be there to let countries emerge in new ways. And so we do that in a variety of ways. And I always think of it kind of a three-legged stool. I think of humanitarian assistance and development aid, still necessary. We can't forget that the difference in the standard of living in every African country is much lower than we have in Canada. And so, and we have climate change issues, we have weather issues, we have all kinds of things that happen, as well as simply making sure that people have food to eat, water to drink, and a life to live. So humanitarian aid, development assistance, core, fundamental part of Canadian involvement in Africa. The second leg, though, has to do with investment, economic development, trade, opportunities like that. Making sure that we're not resting on one leg, which is just development assistance, but actually helping countries develop investments, develop agriculture, develop all of their ways of being successful in the world, supporting African trade within Africa, within the economic regions, but also in Africa, and getting free trade happening in Africa itself, and developing capacity so Africa can compete in the world. And we will do better when Africa does better. The third leg of that stool has to do with peace, security, and democracy and freedom, human rights, and those issues. And so we know that we want to develop countries and help them with humanitarian assistance. We want to invest and help Canadians invest, as well as Africans invest in Canada. It's two ways. But the third thing is making sure that democratic rights, freedoms, civil rights, women's rights, children's rights are all preserved within democratic structures that emerge. They won't be the same as ours. They shouldn't be the same as ours. They should be African, but at the very core, the individual's rights are important, minority rights are important, and freedom and democracy. So you have to have peace with that. So that means we have to engage in peacemaking sometimes, peacekeeping, and peace building. So those are the three legs of the stool that I keep in my heart and in my mind as I look at Africa. I'm going to be really interested to find out where you are. I've not obviously been in every country in Africa. My first trip, well, I won't talk to the tourist trips, because I've had tourist trips as well. They started up in Morocco, but to South Africa and Namibia, and then Egypt and Tunisia, and then Botswana and Zimbabwe, and then Kenya, and then Ghana and the Gambia, and Algeria, and Uganda and Tanzania. I'm missing some. I will get there. Rwanda, certainly. And a few more that'll come to me about different trips that I've had. So usually I've been there about a week in each of those countries, and I need to go back because there are many, many countries that I've not been able to touch